Hey everyone, we're so excited. I'm here with a good friend of mine, Alexander. He is an incredible lender, but I'm gonna actually kind of let him go into telling us a little bit about himself. So Alex, take it away.
Hey Demi, nice to see you again, my friend. Name is Alexander Gandarella. Been doing lending for about 6 years. Prior to that, I was with Chase for 4 years. So in financial services, about 10 years in total. Have a lot of experience working with clients and their money. And when it comes to lending, you want to be always transparent because people want to be transparent with their money. You want to be upfront and honest and tell them what's going to go down. And I think it's always the best way to work.
Yeah, I would agree. So just on a personal note, I know Alex through VU Church. We both go to VU Church, but also he is the wonderful lender that helped me and my fiance buy our first property, and he's amazing. So I decided that I wanted him to kind of come on board and kind of give everybody an idea from a third party, not just from a realtor that's saying buy, sell. I wanted you to hear what the situation is from a different perspective. And so Alex, just with the last few months of us being in this crazy pandemic and, in quarantine and the economy, people are freaking out about the economy. I just wanted to know, what has your experience been during this pandemic in terms of being a lender, and how has that kind of shifted over the last few months?
To be honest with you, at first I was fearing the worst like everybody else. But I haven't slowed down, which is the surprising part of it. I've been nonstop. And while many may think it's the refinancing because lower rates are lower, yes, that is true. But a majority of the business that I'm doing is purchases. Everybody's purchasing because it's never been cheaper to borrow money. I'm closing loans at 2.625. I closed one this morning at 2.875. I saved them about $200 and something a month. At the end of the year, that's $2,400 in savings. That's a vacation they're going to take every year if they wanted to. And like that, it's just ongoing. How many people wanting to purchase right now? So even a duplex, I was doing a duplex as an investment property for somebody, down 3.125. I mean, it's never been cheaper to borrow money. And those that have been waiting or have been just eyeing it are saying, I want to take advantage now. So I think you can attest to this. Properties go on one day, by the next day they're already gone.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. And also, it depends obviously on the price range, but the reality of it is that, and obviously correct me if I'm wrong, the lower the price, the interest rates, the more affordability a buyer has, the more buying power that they have. So a price point that they could afford now at these low 3% on average rates, right? At 4.5%, they may not be able to afford, right? So
Correct. I had a similar case where the gentleman was buying FHA back in February. His rate would have been, I think it was 3.625 or 3.5. When he came back to me now, it's below 3%. And ironically, same purchase price, same property, because it was still available. And he got a 2.5% interest rate. And he qualified because the interest rate was lower by not even a full point, but 0.75 of it. And that made the difference for him qualifying and not qualifying. So a lot of people are now qualifying because of the lower rates.
Yeah, and that kind of segued into my next question, which was, how are you seeing interest rates? And so clearly, interest rates are still at an all-time low. I mean, when we were purchasing earlier on in the pandemic, we got the odd 2.8% interest rate, and now you're telling me you're closing those at 2.6, 2.5. So you're still seeing lower rates, right?
So obviously rates is always dependent on the FICO score, dependent on how much you're actually being lent by the lender. If you ask for 95% or a 96.5% loan to value, your rate's going to be a little higher. But if you're putting 25% down, you're going to get really low at basically zero origination. What does that really mean is how much are you paying to get a lower rate? Because right now rates, if you wanted to pay zero origination, which is basically points for buying down the rate, you're probably going to be around 3.125, 3.25.
Which is still amazing.
Which is still amazing. But if you pay $2,000 to $3,000, you get below 3%. Now, if you ask for, say, 80% loan to value and you come in with a 40 FICO score, you're going to get 2.875 at zero. origination, which means you're walking away like a bandit with money. And that's what I'm seeing lately is people are going, wait a minute, this is really cheap to borrow money. Let me go inquire. And then when we do a loan scenario where they give me a property they might be interested in, I send them back within a couple of minutes an idea of what their monthly payment is like, along with, you know, an estimate of insurance, the tax bill, if there's an HOA, and then depending on how much down payment they put, what would be the mortgage insurance, if any. They kind of take it back going, well, that's what I'm paying in rent. Why not take advantage and buy something now? Another thing that I believe what's been going on with the pandemic is, I mean, Miami is, at least where I am in Brickell, it's a lot of condominiums.
Yeah.
People are tired of being locked up in a little box. So they're looking for homes now. So they're saying, I want a home, I want a yard, and it's never been cheaper to borrow. Let me go inquire. And then when they inquire and you and I team up and they sort of see, wow, this is possible.
Yeah.
Now they light up and they're like, wow, I'm going to be a homeowner. And you'd be surprised how many people right now are just, they just call for inquiring, but then when they find out that they're capable, everything changes.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny because I actually, myself and other agents on the team, when we have people talking to us about the real estate market and whether or not it's the right time to buy, I mean, you know, one of the things that I have always advised over the years has been, you know, if you don't know, you don't know what you don't know, right? So the best thing to do is speak to a lender, because it's going to take you a conversation, because you know the questions as a lender, you know the questions and the answers that you're looking for in a basic conversation to give them a prequal, right? Meaning it's worth your time as a lender to see all of their documents to then give them that pre-approval. And so for me, I tell people all the time, like, you've got nothing to lose except gaining knowledge and saying like, oh, you know what, I can't buy right now because it doesn't make sense, but now I have a plan. Now I have, you know, an outline of the steps I need to take to be able to get there in 6 months, in a year, right? And so, you know, in terms of you, when you're talking to buyers for the first time, right, and they're talking about their pre-approval, right, about getting a pre-approval, what are some of the main things that you as a lender are looking for?
So, I mean, there's, as I work with my lenders, I'm always looking for this, like, I would say between 3 and 4 different spaces that are sections of a loan that we have to really focus on. One of them is affordability. Do you have the capability of paying back that loan? So income is a very important part. It's the one part that actually takes the longest to configure and find out, because guidelines are so tricky with depending on how you make money. And everybody works a different way. Some are salaries, some are commissions, some are a combination of both. Some get overtime, some don't get overtime, some get it. And it's so many different little things that have to be looked at. That way we give, you know, we give our clients a direct understanding up front. This is what you're capable of, or that you're not capable of. I don't like working on the, let's just submit it and see what happens. I mean, I do a very, you remember this, very strong pre-underwriting in the beginning of the entire file. That way the ending of it is, we're not bothering you with so much paperwork.
Right.
Something that I do want to point out, I'm not so much a lender as I'm a broker, because if I was a lender, then my loyalties would lie to the one specific bank. As a broker, my loyalties lie to the client. So I'm always going to be watching out for their best interest. I'm always going to be telling, hey, the bank, hey, that fee shouldn't be on there, or why are you putting that on there? Bring that down, or give me a full explanation as to why that's appearing on here, because I need to be able to not just tell my client, trust me, it's here, it is in black and white. I don't want you to believe me. I want you to see it. So it's extremely important that people understand what they're signing, what they're getting into. Last thing I want to do is a couple of years from now, get a phone call saying, hey, you didn't tell me something. I don't want that phone call. I tell you everything up front, ask a million questions. But going back to what you were saying, income is very important. Assets, you got to have the down payment. You got to have the cash to close. And cash to close is different than closing cost, because it's a separate thing between, as you remember, closing costs is one thing. That's what the county, the state of Florida charges you. That's what the title agent is going to charge you for doing their services and whatnot. And that also includes, you know, a bank fee, or if I have a fee or anything like that at all. Then there is prepaid items. Prepaid items is taxes and insurance. Now, if you put 20% down or more, you can avoid having that escrow and their cash to close drop significantly. But then that means you're responsible every year for paying your own taxes, and paying your insurance. If you do it the other way, where I believe you guys did it this way, is inside in your payment, they collect your insurance and they collect your taxes. And at the end of the year, they send everything for you. Everything, and it's much easier that way because you don't have the headache of like, oh, did I forget to pay my taxes this year? Or did I forget to send the payment for the insurance and it didn't lapse? You don't want that headache, especially with hurricane season around the corner. And you're like, did I pay my insurance? Like, you don't want that. You want to be able to have that comfort level going, I know my bank paid it. Why? Because the bank has an interest in your property as well.
Yeah.
So cash to close incorporates prepaid items and closing costs together. And if there's anything left over due as far as the deposit is concerned or down payment. So that's very important. Assets is very important. Where is the money coming from? If you don't have all the money, like in your case, you looked at your fiance and said, hey, honey, here's money. So it was a gift from his future wife. That helps out a lot. But it has to be family. In this particular case, it was like, guys, that's the fiance. We're good. You know, and I mean, I was like, do you want me to show you a video? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
They believed us. They believed us. That's why you're on the loan.
Yeah.
But it's almost like a story that we're telling the bank. Here's their income. Here's their assets. And then the final piece of the puzzle is, are they trustworthy enough? Are they responsible enough? And this is where your credit comes into play. This is where keeping your credit card usage low comes into place. This is where making your monthly payments on time comes into place. This is where coming to see me before you see you is so important, because I let you know, you know what I mean? Like, you know exactly where you're standing, and like, you can buy right now, or let's prepare you for 3 months down the road or 4 months down the road.
That's what we did, remember? And you connected me with the credit company, and that's what we did. We did that back in, I think it was in January when we met.
February, yeah, exactly.
And like, it totally made the whole process easier. So
yes, exactly. And most people don't know. Like, I actually had a client yesterday. We were talking on the phone for a little while, and just for like, you know, just playing around, I was like, hey, you know what? What do you make monthly? And I literally just started, you know, with a piece of paper on a napkin at a restaurant. I just started adding numbers there. And I'm like, all right, so this is what we can consider for income. What are your liabilities? And they're like, what's a liability? And I'm like, what do you pay for car payment? Write it down. What do you pay for this? And write it down. What's your minimum, you know, payment for your credit card? And we wrote it down. When I started doing the numbers and I go, what are you considering for a purchase price? I mean, the little formula, the little thing that I did for them took us about 10 minutes, but just sitting there with that, and I'm like, listen, if you have enough money to put down payment, at this current moment, you would be approved on the income side, which means you have the capability of paying a $400,000 purchase price, because they'd be putting 5% down. And they were literally going, really? And I'm like, yes, the part that we need to find out now is, do you have enough in assets?
Right.
Because of COVID, things have changed a little bit in regards to debt to income ratios, as well as credit concerns. So, for instance, in your case, back then, if COVID had hit while we were in the middle of all this, we would have had a little bit of an issue, because if you have gift funds coming into the equation, now your debt to income ratio drops from 55 to 50.
Right.
And that's on an FHA. If it's on conventional, if I'm not mistaken, and again, I'd have to relook at my guidelines again, because they change so often now, I believe it drops down to 45% now.
Yeah.
Which doesn't help, because you need that extra 5% to qualify. So everything is always changing. There's not one file or one client that's always the same than the other. But when you give me everything I need, I'm going to be able to give you a very good picture of where you stand. And like the guy yesterday, he goes, well, I have this much in assets. And I was like, well, then you'd be good to go, because you're going to even have, in worst case scenario, 6 months of reserves, where normally they ask for 2 months, 3 months. There have been some cases I've seen where they're asking for 6 months of reserves. So if you have a total of a $3,000 payment, you know, including principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and maybe even an HOA in there, that means after closing costs, after prepaid items, you're basically cash to close, you still have to show $18,000 in an account somewhere.
Yeah.
Some people don't have all that money left over, you know? Yeah. So when he told me his number, and I just started, again, you know, balling it really quickly with estimated numbers, I'm like, yeah, you're good to go. Now that guy's like, I can't believe this.
Yeah.
Now he wants that letter. He wants that, you know, the famous pre-qualification letter or the DU approval. And I'm like, well, I can't actually give you that until you send me all the documentation. Realize I just did you a pace. Exactly. I just did a little napkin, little thing, but no bank's going to accept that. I need to see the documentation. I was just, helping out the guy because he was so nervous.
But at least, but you see, like even having a 10-minute conversation, that's going to save everybody a bunch of time of, falling in love with properties that they can't afford, or not looking at properties at all because they didn't realize that they can buy a property. So for me, I'm always like, have the conversation. It's at no loss to anybody. It's 10 minutes. And for somebody like you, Alex, that you're so like, you've been in the business long enough that you know exactly the questions to ask, and obviously a pre-qualification, everybody, for those of you that are listening, a pre-qualification, I mean, it's a verbal conversation. There's no proof behind it. So also, like, the pre-qualification is only as good as the information and the truth that you give to the broker, right? Then that's the pre-approval comes and the DU, which is the desktop underwriter, comes when you have proven it with factual documentation.
Amen.
And that's what you're going to need to make an offer anywhere. So
exactly.
It behooves you buyers out there or people interested in buying to be as honest. The way that you need to be honest with your doctor, be honest with your broker. I mean, the last thing you want to do is put yourself in a situation where you think you can afford this. You start looking at properties here because you said you could afford these things, right? And then when the paperwork comes in, we're like, oh, actually, sorry, you got to be down here. It's very difficult. It's very difficult to bounce back from that. And so for me, I've always been such a huge, firm believer. I mean, I was taught really well that, like, no one sees a property until they have gotten approved. And a pre-qualification is just to know, should you start looking at your documents?
Exactly.
Approval. That's what we need. So during this time, like, what have been some of the things that you have noticed that has made it more difficult for buyers to actually get approved or qualified? Like, what are, have you seen bad credits? Is it because of the loss of income? Like, what has your experience been with that?
So I got to say, I'm kind of blessed in that regard. I don't normally get clients with bad credit, but I do work with other brokers where I don't want to say I'm sort of like a mortgage consultant to them, where they may call me saying, hey, how do I get this person's credit up? I'm like, well, let's review the credit report. And most of the time what people find on there is that they've got a couple late payments. Can't really do anything about that at the moment in time that we're applying for the loan. It's not that you can get that deleted immediately. That's something that takes time if you're not at fault. But a lot of the things that I'm seeing is the usage. So if they have credit cards, they're well above 30% usage on the card. So if you have $1,000 limit, you're constantly using 70, 80% of that constantly, your credit score is going to suffer.
Yeah.
Why? Because you're at high risk, especially with COVID times where people are losing their jobs left and right. What happens if you're 90% usage of your credit card and you lose your job? You're more than likely going to keep paying that one very minimal, if not paying it all, because you got to either pay rent or pay your mortgage or put food on the table.
Exactly.
You're gonna choose what's more important to you at that time. So banks think, this guy's at high risk. Now your credit score starts to come down, and now you're gonna get a higher rate.
Yeah.
So that's some of the things that I've been seeing. Other things that I've been seeing is, people that want to buy investment properties, which is very popular now because, again, money's so cheap to borrow. They put their current mortgage into forbearance or deferment. And, well, you can't really borrow money if you can't pay your current mortgage.
Yeah.
Like, if I was a lender, or I pose this question to anybody watching, if somebody's asking you for a mortgage or to lend them money, yet they can't pay their current obligations, would you be lending them money?
Exactly.
It's kind of common sense. It's like, if you can't pay your current mortgage, why would I give you another one?
Yeah.
I mean, some people are using the forbearance and deferment when they actually can pay their mortgage, and that's not right. That's not what we should be doing. This should be for people who really need the help. There are people who have lost their jobs. There are people who have been placed on furlough, and those are the people that really need the assistance. But if you want to take advantage of the system and you want to go buy a property, here's going to be the backlash to it. Other things that I've been noticing with credit lately is not having enough lines of credit. So some people are like, oh, I don't want credit. I have one credit card and that's it.
Yeah.
You need at least 2 to 3 lines of credit. So something that I would strongly suggest is, 2 regular credit cards and maybe 1 department store credit card. Right. Now, another line of credit that also works is you have a car, a lease, or a car payment. things that I've seen go wrong is somebody tells me, well, you know, why don't I qualify? And I'm like, well, you have good credit, but you have 2 cars. I was like, one of them's not mine. And I'm like, well, can you prove who pays it? Now, the beauty there is that if it's your son or your spouse or family member, if you can prove to me that they pay it by showing me 12 months of bank statements, there's a possibility that I can get that removed as your responsibility and we can get you qualified. But sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes, well, I pay it, they pay me. That's your responsibility. And now that's going to hurt you to buy a property. So one of the golden rules, and I think you remember this, I think I called you and Jordan on the side. I was like, all right, guys, there's the commandments.
Yeah.
You do not apply for anything with your credit. You do not sign for somebody else, co-signing for anything. I mean, it's ludicrous to do from the beginning anyways, but don't help anybody out, because I have had it where the mom signed for her son, and after she repaired her credit, she shot up 70, 80 points within 45 days, comes back to me. We're thinking we're good to go. And I'm playing with, I'm like, why is her debt to income so high? And when I look at her credit again, I'm like, when did you buy another car? And she goes, my son, but it's my son's. And I'm like, yeah, but it's your credit. It's under you. And because they had just bought it, they didn't have 12 months of payments. She had to wait a year.
Yeah.
I mean, that was crazy, but this is just kind of the stuff that happened.
It's like also people that end up once before even getting after getting qualified, before they close, they buy furniture. You're like, no, don't anything.
Don't do anything with your credit. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, but they were gonna give me a discount at the store if I opened up a credit card.
Wait till after. Get a discount after.
Exactly. And you should even wait. There are times you should even wait at least a week to 10 days after closing, because they will do a post check and find out you just went crazy and you just swiped $20,000 worth of furniture.
Yeah.
You don't want to tempt the bank to do something, and they could come back. I mean, there's documentation that you will sign where they review your stuff afterwards up to a certain amount of time. I don't want you to think that you can't go a month later and go shopping. You absolutely can. But you got to watch out that if you do it immediately afterwards, or literally the day before closing, they went and applied for a department store credit card because they were going to get 15-20% discount. Don't do it. Please don't do it. So that's other stuff that can affect your credit and even trying to purchase, because if for some reason you did get approved and you went buying everything and you were right at the borderline in your debt to income ratio, that can push you right over. Now you no longer qualify.
Yeah.
So very important not to do that either. That happens all too often, sadly.
Yeah. No, I mean, when we closed, you knew that we were looking for a new car, and you don't do anything until like 2 weeks after closing. And we were like, okay.
Exactly.
And like, look,
exactly.
And I mean, 2 weeks flies like this. I mean, look at it. I remember the 1st of 2020 and we're already in the middle of August. So like time flies.
Absolutely.
You gotta wait an extra month. Like it's not a big
deal.
So would you say during this time of COVID, would you say that it is a good time to be buying? If you qualify.
I absolutely think it's an absolute phenomenal time to be buying. I mean, the number one reason, it's never been cheaper. I mean, if you want to look at historically, you want to look at rates in the US over the last 20 years, even before COVID, money was cheap compared to the past, right? And if it was cheap then, which is January, February, and part of March, it's even cheaper now. Like it is so cheap to borrow money right now. It's almost like, why don't you even consider it? Yeah. It's as simple as a quick phone call. We sit down and we speak for all of 30 minutes or less. I let you know more or less where you may stand. If you really want 100%, then I will ask you to send me a bunch of documentation, but at least you're going to get that little DU approval and a nice little pre-qualification letter that lets them say, let me go show you what's available in your price range. Yeah. And then you're going to be like, I can afford that? Like that's the most common thing that I hear. People go, I actually can afford that. And they're like, yeah. And then I tell them, you have enough money, pay that credit card off right now. And now your credit's going to shoot up by the time you actually go purchase the property, which means you're going to get even a better rate. So most people, again, it's education. And I think you learned this with me. I love to talk and educate my clients.
Well, this is why I wanted to do this. This is why I wanted to do this, because I think that owning real estate has never been more important. And I say that because it's always been important, but because of people's lack of job security and certain situations, it's really important to be able to hold on to an asset that appreciates, not just with job security being like something, you know, not 100% there, but even with the stock market, like where are you investing your money? The stock market took a really big hit at the beginning of COVID. You know, real estate hasn't seen that yet. And, you know, it's one of those things that even when there's a dip in real estate, it comes back up if you just hold on to it, you know? And you know, when the sales market is kind of going down, the rental market's going up. So you can always rent out that property that you own, you know, and make up for it. So there's a lot of value in real estate, but I just feel like people aren't educated on this stuff. And it's so hard to have a conversation with the hundreds of friends that you have on a day-to-day, right? So for me, I knew that you came from a place of, let me educate you. Let me break this down into steps that make sense, that are easy, that are not overwhelming. Because I'll tell you guys, I've been in real estate. I've practiced real estate for 6.5 years. I've dealt with buyers, sellers at different price ranges. There's nothing like actually going through the process to make you realize like, whoa, this can be overwhelming. Why? And that's why it's so important to partner with an agent that's going to walk you through it, but also a lending broker that's going to be able to walk you, because the financial part is the overwhelming part. Like the part that I do, it seems overwhelming, but really it's the financial part that's really overwhelming. So somebody like Alex, who's going to make it so easy and so basic, that's why I wanted to do this, because I think it's so important for people to hear what you have to say. And also understand that like when we realtors are saying like now is the time to buy, it's not because I'm trying to make a sale. I'm saying it because I know what it's like. I know what the situation is. And, you know, it's nice for them to hear from a third party that deals with the financial part.
Correct.
So now we've been talking about buyers a lot. I know that that's who you really work with. You work with buyers, but about all of this information, like how is this beneficial for sellers, right? Like for people that are contemplating selling their property, or were contemplating it prior to COVID, or even at the beginning of COVID, like what would you say is so great about them being sellers in this kind of market?
So I actually, well, you're correct. I work mainly with buyers. I do work with a lot of agents like yourself that list a lot of properties. And the reason I do that is because I like working with realtors that are as professional as you are, that, you know, day in and day out, they live and breathe this. I think the day I met you, it was kind of a funny meeting, because I follow you on Instagram and I'm like, yo, she posts amazing things. Not like, oh, look how pretty. Look at this house. Like you gave details, you gave price points. Like I was like, all right, this is a different mentality of how they promote and promote themselves as a realtor, but giving whoever it is more ideas of what is going on in the real estate market and what properties they're looking at. And I was like, you know what? I literally even had a message about typed out to send to you. And when I turned around, I was like, man, she looks really familiar. And when I went up to it was you, I was like, all right, this is just God proven, man. Like he put me in this church. We're supposed to work together. We got to make this happen. And, you know, Lord and behold, I think we're like 9 months later, here we are. But one of the things I love to work with sellers, or in this case, you know, listing agents like yourself, is I love to build the loan scenario out. That way, when you see a buyer come in, they already know what the monthly is going to look like. Because I connect with my team, what I like to call my team, my insurance agents, my title agents, and I go, give me an idea of what this property insurance might go for. Give me an idea what the closing cost based on 5% down if it's available, depending on the price point of the selling of the property. Because I know you visit these $4 and $5 million properties, and unfortunately 5% doesn't exist in those. Right. But I can work sometimes anywhere from 15, 20 to 25% down on those guys. But whatever it is, I try and build at least 3 loan scenarios based on different, you know, down payments. And then even for foreign national buyers, I'll tell you, hey, you know, if it's a foreign national buyer, which is a lot of what comes to Miami now, I even give you that scenario. So why is it interesting for a seller right now? People want to move to Florida. I mean, you're up north and you got COVID, you're stuck in one area. Here, if you buy a house and you have a yard, you're able to go out, and the weather here is phenomenal, like year round. Yeah. Like where everybody's freezing in come November, December, January, we're walking around in bathing suits and sandals down here. You know, the weather is absolutely amazing down here. So if you're a seller and you want to know what it is to sell, I mean, you think you know this. You have loan scenarios that I've sent you
Yeah.
And whether the prospect buyer comes to you saying, well, what was my monthly payment? Whether they call me or not, that's not my concern. My concern is to give you the tools that you can say, hey, this is what it would go like. Now, if they used to work another bank, they used another bank. That doesn't really bother me. It's more along the lines of, are we, sorry, I got an incoming call there. It's more along the lines of, what does it look like if we put 20% down?
Right.
What kind of rates can we expect? And then I don't expect you to do this. And some of the clients won't understand that, once your purchase price goes above $1 million, the rules and the guidelines change. Once they go above 1.5 million, the rules and guidelines change. In fact, the maximum loan to value for a Fannie Mae conventional loan is $510,400,000 for a single family residence. So once you push $1 above that, you're in what they consider a jumbo loan. Yeah. The guidelines and the rates and everything changes just a tad bit when you get to that point. So it's extremely important to understand that. So why do I still work with sellers, or in this case, listing agents like yourself, is because I want you to have the tools there available that when somebody walks in, they say, so that's my monthly payment on this house. I'm just giving you more ammunition to be able to move your property. And right now, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's a seller's market at this point right now, is it not?
Yeah, actually it is. It is a seller's market. Our inventory is low. So if you're watching this and you're considering selling, or you know somebody that is, now is the time. And I'll answer that question myself about why is now a good time for sellers, because buyers have never been more able to buy than they are right now. We have a flood of buyers. And now that they lifted the quarantine guidelines for people coming in from the Northeast, we're getting so many people flying in specifically to look at real estate. So as a seller, you've got low inventory, which means you have less competition, which means you have the ability to ask that much more clearly if the location, condition, and all of that. But it's a seller's market. It puts a little bit more power in your hands in terms of the flexibility in your price point, right? So for me, yeah, we're seeing a lot of buyer activity and inventory is low. And I mean, I talk to agents throughout the nation. This is not just a South Florida issue. This is a national issue. We have markets everywhere, all over the US, that are just like really low on inventory. We're basically begging sellers, like, put your house on the market. It's time. And a lot of people took it off the market clearly with the concerns of COVID and not being sure of what that was going to bring. But let me tell you, any good agent like myself and my team, they are following all of the CDC guidelines in terms of showing property. We're doing everything in our power, and that's for another conversation, but we are following the CDC guidelines. So we're not putting anybody at risk, so I think that that's important to know. In terms of sellers and selling in this market, I know a big issue has always been appraisals, right? Like, we know inspection period, you're like crossing your fingers. Appraisal, you're literally like praying, you're putting out, like, you're doing everything you can because appraisals are so up in the air. What has your experience been with appraisals during this time? Because everybody kind of says something different.
So I guess that really depends on the type of property you're looking for. Obviously, I think it's pretty obvious that the condominium market is overwhelmed because there's so much of it for sale, and some of it's coming down. I mean, foreign national investors are just wanting to get rid of property, so they don't care what price points they're selling.
Right.
And that's going to drive prices down. So if you're looking for the condominium market, you're going to get steals.
Yeah.
But the single family residence market is what I'm noticing. So something that I've noticed, and again, I don't look at other mortgage brokers as competition. I look at them as colleagues. Just, we work for different people. We have our different ways of working and getting our business, but we share information with us. And something that I've noticed is the price point in sale, not loan wise, but the sale wise, I'm noticing a lot of between the 400 and 500,000 range is actually moving a lot. 2 years ago, where, for instance, in Key Biscayne was an ice rink, nothing sold in Key Biscayne. Beautiful island area. I mean, it's gorgeous to live out there, but nothing was selling. There's a specific reason. Not everybody has $1 million+ capabilities of buying a property. But now I'm getting phone calls, not 1 or 2 a month. I'm averaging 1 or 2 a week. People wanting to get loan scenarios on properties of $1 million or up. So I'm noticing that price point starting to move now. But why is that? Because the rates are so low.
Yeah.
So that now people that have that capability are saying, I can borrow money at 3%. Let me go see a bigger property now. Clients of mine that bought 2 years ago, and I'm thinking they're going to be in that property for at least 7-8 years. They're already saying, we're putting ours for sale. We want a bigger home. And they want a bigger home. It's like, okay, great. But funny you mentioned, I was reading your Berkshire Hathaway report, and I was rather surprised to hear that there's not enough inventory. That literally shocked me. This is a seller's market. This is where people can make money, and they're not putting their property for sale. Like, they need to be calling you immediately because they need to find out what it's like. So on the appraisal side, single family residences, I'm noticing that they're coming back. I mean, they're never going to go above what the selling price is. I mean, they might go a little bit, but they're never going to go way above that. So they'll come right at the selling, whatever it says on the contract, and a little bit over that. When it comes to condominiums, it's a hit or miss. It just depends on where they purchased. Duplexes, multifamilies, I'm noticing you guys got a steal. I'm not gonna lie to you. You guys got a steal. But I'm noticing that it's almost cheaper to build a multifamily than it is to buy an existing one.
Yeah.
Because the sellers know that it's a seller's market. But appraisal, it's really a hit or miss. It depends on the area as well. So it's putting yourself in the right shoes, or with somebody like yourself and your team, where you guys know how to do your homework. You know how to look at the comparables. You know how to look at the rental income if your clients are buying for investment property. And you can give them the correct cap rate. You can tell them, hey, this is located in Miami Shores as opposed to it's not in Miami Shores by 2 blocks. I mean, that's just something that I just ran across. I mean, that's literally an example that I just ran across Monday of this week. I had to sit with my client and go, listen, you need to know who your realtor is, because in this particular case, I'm kind of baffled how they didn't know that the property is not in Miami Shores.
Yeah. And
how did they not know that?
A block can make a difference. Crossing a street can make a difference in property value, in taxes, in everything. And so that's why when we're listing properties and we have buyers coming in with appraisals, we're making sure that those appraisers are local appraisers that know what those cross streets are, what is, subdivision is one thing, but actual cross streets make a difference. And there's no doubt about it. It's just because different areas move at different paces. And so you've got to be mindful of that. But I would agree with you in terms of appraisals coming in either right at asking price, maybe a little bit above, which is great. I mean, listen, I'm not trying to ask for $10,000 above sales price. I'm just trying to appraise. And, that was a big concern during this time, that banks were going to be more conservative. And at least in the price ranges that we've been working in, and you know how we are, we work kind of everything.
Correct.
We haven't really had any issues. We're coming in either at sales price or slightly above it. And it's been amazing. I mean, I'm telling you, and I've spoken to agents all over the place, all over Miami. Everybody's kind of in shock about like where we are and where the real estate market's heading. And, I think it's so important, again, for everybody to know at least what they can do with their money. And that I'm going to be sending I do send a ton of people your way, whether they end up calling you or not. I'm always like, you got to call my friend Alex. You got to call my friend Alex, because it's time. It's like now is the time.
Absolutely.
So, I'm so excited. I'm so thankful to that, like, God put you in my life and that we've been able to do business together and learn from each other. And, I'm telling you guys, I'm not just tooting his horn because he's on my screen. I mean, I've experienced him. I have experienced his work ethic, and he is incredible. He's on top of it. I mean, he's somebody that's like, I'm not going to lock you in until I know it's the time. And he's like, you better answer your phone when I call you. I'm going to ask. And that's literally what happened to us. And within the hour of us locking in, the rate changed. So he's on top of his stuff. I think it's really important for anybody that's looking to buy or to sell, to surround themselves with a team, like Alex was mentioning before, with a team that, one, has open communication with each other, but also knows what they're doing. Because at the end of the day, everybody has a cousin, a brother, a friend, a family friend that's a realtor, a lender, an insurance guy, you name it, they're all over this town, especially in Miami. but not all, it's true. We're not all we're not all the same. You know, some
Mm-hmm.
people actually take this seriously. And Alex, I can speak from experience, personal experience and professional experience. You are at the top of my list for sure for brokers, for lending purposes. And even if it's just, I mean, I call with questions all the time because like you said, everything is constantly changing. And so for me, I got to stay on my game. I got to be able to make sure
Mm-hmm.
that I'm educating my clients and, you know, the same, you know, with me. And so I'm so thankful that you took the time out of your crazy busy schedule, because I know you're all over the place, to, you know, go over this stuff with me and just let people know. Guys, I will be posting his contact information. So if you know, if you're a realtor and you're looking for a solid broker, this is your guy. If you're a buyer and you're looking for a broker, this is your guy. I stand by it 100. I mean, I used him personally for my deal. So I trusted him with my money. So I speak truth.
If there's anything I can add to anybody that's listening, at the end of the day, I mean, when I worked in banking, I saw how hard people work for their money, and nothing would make me more upset to see people get taken advantage of. So even if I don't do the loan, even if you have a cousin, you have a friend, or you have somebody in the bank, what's it going to hurt to get a second opinion and know that you are getting the best deal?
Yep.
I mean, I had $1 million construction loan deal today where I had called at least 13 lenders that I know of across the nation, because I have more than 4 lenders. I've got God knows how many. And when I couldn't find them the deals, like, listen, unfortunately, the only thing I can find you is hard money. And I'm pretty sure with your cousin who referred you to me is going to find you a better deal than I can. And he goes, well, he found me this. And I told him flat out, take it.
Yeah.
I'm never going to tell somebody to work with me just because I want to make more money. At the end of the day, I care more about what am I bringing everybody else in the equation, because if I take care of the client, which initially takes care of you, you're going to turn around saying, I want to work with him again. For me, it's make sure you're getting the best deal possible.
Yeah.
You know, I've had people tell me, hey man, this bank offered me this. I told them, hang up the phone with me right now and lock in that rate, because that, I don't know how they're doing it, but lock it in.
Yeah.
And then I even tell them, I'll even give them a list of stuff to do, to ask, you know, ask them if there's origination, ask them if this, ask them. And then I explain the reasons why, and then they go running that way.
Yeah.
Then they come back saying, oh my God, they wanted to charge me $5,000 in origination. I'm like, see, this is the kind of stuff that they try to get you on, because they figure if you pay for the appraisal and you pay for this, you're already hooked in with them. I don't even order an appraisal or title documents until I have a loan approval back.
Yeah.
But you will have many mortgage brokers, many loan officers within banks that'll say, let's order the appraisal, let's order the appraisal. Why are you ordering an appraisal if you don't even have a loan approval yet? Yes, I may do a very thorough job pre-underwriting you, but until I hear from the underwriter himself,
Yeah.
I'm not a 99.99% guy. I'm a 100% guy. I'm giving you assurances. I don't want you to go and do something that you didn't need to do or spend money, because I'm looking at every dollar you spend as my money.
Right.
So why would I do anything differently? At the end of the day, if you're a realtor and you want to know that your client's getting the best deal, just get them on the phone with me.
Yeah.
I'll tell them, like I've had realtors tell me, oh, they're telling us this. Well, I'm going to do the same thing, because we all have to abide by the same guidelines. It's not like one mortgage broker or one loan officer can do something different than the other. The guidelines exist for everybody.
Yeah.
This is not, fulanito or this guy or that guy gets a little special treatment. No, we don't get special treatment. We all have to abide by the same guidelines, the same rules, depending on the type of loan.
Yeah.
But what you want is that transparency. What you want is somebody that explains it. I'm never going to tell you, take my word for it. I'm going to explain it to you. Yeah. And then if you want, write it down and Google it yourself, and you're going to find the information exactly as I've basically given it to you. The best example I can give you is, my father is a certified public accountant. He's the CFO for a huge car dealership. He handles God knows how many. This guy's numbers. My father is all about numbers. And I've met other people in finance, like in investment, the investment world. And when I speak to them in my lingo, my lending lingo, all they say is, huh? So if I confuse them, and this is what they do day in and day out, I had to learn a different way of breaking this down to ABCs. where you understand what I'm speaking about, where you understand when I say a DTI ratio and you're going, what is that? Exactly. I'm grabbing your income, dividing it by all of your liabilities, which is your credit card, your car payment, your student loans, and the new property. If that number is above 50%, you don't qualify. And I literally sent it to them in an email going, this is your income. This is all your credit cards. That way they can do the math themselves and going, Alex is right, it's 51. I don't qualify. He's telling me to pay this off. That way I do qualify. Okay, I'm going to work with this guy. He's being open about it. With the interest rate one, I mean, there are some times where I'll say, hey, we got to lock today. Why? Because I've been monitoring rates for the past week and they have never been lower. We got to lock it in now. Yeah. But a majority of the time I'm going to watch that and I review rates, like I was telling you, anywhere from 2 to 3 times a day. And then I'm paying attention to the news. I have the TV on all day. And if I hear the stock market is doing horrible, sad to say, that's a good day for us because rates will come down, which is what happened with you. It was a really bad day in the market.
Bad day. Thank you, Jesus. Whatever. We're back.
I remember that one. I got on and I was like, I'm curious as to what they are. When I saw it, I literally couldn't believe it. I text messaged you like 3 or 4 times and I'm like, I don't care if I'm looking you up. Like, answer your phone right now. And I think you were in your pajamas drinking your coffee.
Lock it in.
Yeah. And literally just like that, we locked in and rates were never even that low back then. You got today's rates back then. Even your closing agent kind of looked at it twice saying, did they make a mistake on the paperwork?
I've been in this business for 6.5 years, but my family has been in this business for over 30 years. And they've all been like, I have never seen a rate that low. And now it's definitely become a little bit more common just because of where we're at right now. But still, we got under 3% for an income producing property.
That is,
it doesn't get better, but either way, guys, this guy knows what he's talking about. You don't have to listen to me. You can just listen to him. He's great. And I don't want to take up too much more of your time, Alex, but dude, you are saving grace. You're amazing. I highly recommend, and I so appreciate you taking the time out of your crazy schedule to do this one-on-one and educate our prospective clients. Cause this is going to educate a lot of people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anything I can do to help out. I feel led by God to help others, not just in their process of buying a property and being secure at what they're signing, because it's a big deal. This is a big deal that you're getting into. I want you to feel as comfortable as possible. I want you to feel that you're making the right decision and that you're not second guessing. Did I get a good deal? I'm going to walk you through it. I'm going to be like, here it is. And I'll even tell you, go compare it with another bank. I'm never going to get offended if you want to go to another lender and compare the rates. Because if they can beat it, I'm going to go back to my lender going, how come they beat me?
Yeah.
I'm literally just going to tap my foot and I'll be like, what's up? We said 3 and they said 2.875. Get me better than 2. I'm not saying match it. Get me better.
Yeah.
And if I can't beat it, then go work with the other person. But at least you know that you're getting the best deal. At the end of the day, that's all that matters to me. That you're getting the best deal possible. And in this particular case también, because I look at realtors just like yourself, Demi, I want you to close. You work very hard. Realtors most people think that realtors make a lot of money doing nothing. That could be farther from the truth. So farther from the truth. You guys work so hard that I feel compelled that I got to be there for you every step of the way to let you know this is going to close, this is not going to close. I try and let you know that very early on. Something as simple as just answering the phone, even when things may not be going right in the loan, which it does happen. It tends to happen.
Yeah.
Something you're going to learn from me is if I don't answer the phone right there and then, I will call you back shortly afterwards. I won't leave you guessing as to what is going on. I'm always giving you a status update.
Do you work weekends?
Do I wear what?
Do you work weekends?
So occasionally, yes, I do work weekends. It just depends on what's happening. So if they fair warn me that they're going to be searching for properties and they want loan scenarios, I tell my team, like, guys, prepare yourself. We may get an address and we're going to run a scenario. And a scenario for us can take 10, 15 minutes to run from the moment we know the address, because we research the property for the taxes. If it's a condo, we can more or less tell you maybe what the insurance is going to be like, but that's just a really strong guess. As far as HOA, you'll give us the HOA fee. But at the end of the day, you're going to find out what the payment's going to be depending on the purchase price that you're asking for. So that's what we do as far as working on the weekends is concerned. If we're loaded, if we're loaded, right, like we are right now, we are literally processing and pre-qualifying people over the weekend, which tends to be a little easier because most people think we're not working. So I don't get any phone calls, but we get a lot of files processed. We get a lot of files pre-underwritten in that time. So yeah, we do work some weekends. It's whatever it demands.
Trust me when I tell you, I would prefer you not have to work weekends, but I also know that there's a lot of times in a transaction that it's really important to be able to at least get a hold of somebody on that side, on the financial side. And I know that, at least from my experience with you professionally and personally, you were always pretty much available. I never abused it. Clearly, I was somebody, because I'm in the business, I don't abuse it. I only, unless I know this is like a deal breaker, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna call you to bother you. But you are somebody, and I'll say this last thing, you are somebody that is dependable, that is reachable, and in this town, it has been very difficult, and at the end of the day, we are all a team. Realtor, lender, title company, insurance, all of our team. And if we can't have that open communication, it makes it very difficult. So you've always been a pleasure to work with. And yeah, I can't say enough good things.
Thank you. No, but you hit it on the head. It's the team. Because just like there's bad mortgage brokers and loan officers, there's also good ones. I'm not the only one in the market. But there's also lazy, bad realtors. And I thank the Lord that I work with you and your team, that you guys literally eat and breathe this. I mean, this is what you do. So if you're trying to sell your property, you want somebody that answers the phone. If I had a property, I'm selling it, and I see people are interested and my realtor's not answering the phone, I'm going to get really upset. I'm going to get really upset that you're letting opportunities go by, because if I'm selling the property, it's for a reason. I need it sold. So it's stuff like that is extremely important, to work with professionals such as yourself, such as myself, title agents that respond and that they know what they're doing. And I work with attorneys only. It's just the only way to work. As my phone is blowing up now.
I know we've been on for a while, so I'll let you go. But I just want to say again, thanks, because this.
No, believe you me, this is a two-way street. I love working with you and your team. You guys are awesome. Let's help those others out there that. If you're second guessing yourself, you got to work with me and Demi, because believe you me, you're going to be in good hands. I mean, I hate to steal the Allstate's little logo, but or saying, but it's the truth. You're going to be in good hands. So
for sure. Well, Alex, thank you so much, and go keep kicking butt, and we'll talk.
Take care, my friend.
Bye.